Hello and welcome, guests. We are very glad to have you. Thank you for joining us. I am Gary Huggins, Executive Director of the Direct Selling Education Foundation, and welcoming you to the latest from our DSEF Insights webinar series, bringing the expertise of our academic partners and fellows, as well as industry leaders and leading industry thinkers. So thank you for joining us for this. Today, we are exploring successful influencer tactics and how you can adopt those and integrate them into sharpen or vary your own product strategy, elevate your field's storytelling, boost customer acquisition and retention, something that we're all focused on. So it's going to be a fantastic discussion, a great group of guests with us. First, let me thank our supporters who make this possible. The generous support of Gen Con Innovation, which is our presenting sponsor of DSEF Insights. We appreciate your ongoing support, but also the support of our corporate and individual donations. And Colin, if you'll hit that slide for me, you'll see a QR code. We encourage you to participate and donate and support as we go, as you hear these brilliant experts and guests, or love to have you visit our website or reach out to us. We would love to talk to you about the work we do and how you can engage and be a part of that work. So we thank all of our supporters and all of our new friends to come as well. I want to extend a special thank you for our guests from European markets. Because of a special guest we have with us today, we really extended our invitation and our reach on this conversation. And special thanks to Colin on the US West Coast and Sarah in Europe and all of our European guests for staying with us early and late, respectively. We really appreciate that. Great discussion to come. We have an all-star panel, as I mentioned, and so let me do a quick introduction of our experts before we get started. First, we have Dr. Colin Campbell, who's Associate Professor of Marketing at the University of San Diego. He's also Editor-in-Chief of the Journal of Advertising Research, very prestigious publication. His research focuses on the innovations, opportunities, and challenges that the internet presents for marketing, including video advertising in online environments, influencers, deepfakes, Instagrammability, which has become one of my favorite words that I've learned in talking with our friend Colin. He's also ranked as one of the most influential advertising researchers in the last decade and has been interviewed by Time Magazine, Forbes, and numerous other outlets. Also very proud to note that Colin is a DSEF fellow, and we appreciate that long-term partnership and ability to work with him and partner on that front as well. So very exciting. Also excited to welcome Dr. Sarah Rosengren, a new friend and partner who is Professor of Marketing and Chair of Retail and Business Administration and Director of the Center for Retailing at the Stockholm School of Economics in Sweden. Very happy to have you with us, Sarah. She's a leading expert in consumer behavior, marketing communications, and retailing, and is ranked top 10 worldwide and top 3 in Europe for research productivity in leading advertising journals, and also has been awarded the Corporate Partners Research Award by her university and its corporate partners. So Sarah, great honor to have you with us, and thank you for joining us. Also thrilled to have Barbara Williams, who is Senior Manager of Social Media, PR, and Advertising at Mary Kay US. Mary Kay is an industry leader and a great DSEF and DSA partner. Barbara leads integrated media strategies focused on building a strong community, attracting the next generations, driving business for thousands of Mary Kay independent beauty consultants and the company throughout the US. She's also led in developing and implementing strategies that have generated exceptional organic engagement, which is a lot to do with what we'll talk about today, and that have exceeded industry benchmarks in her field. So welcome, Barbara. We're so happy to have you. Finally, I want to welcome our moderator, Robert Cavett, who's CEO of Gen Con Software. Robert's technical leadership drove Gen Con to deliver the industry's first internet-based field tools, apps, cloud-based platforms, innovator in all of those things, and support direct selling companies in over 70 countries around the world. They've also been or earned the prestigious Astra Award in Europe for their great work in that market, as well as the DSA Partner of the Year Award, which recognizes extraordinary industry leadership and collaboration. Robert also, we appreciate, serves on the DSEF Board of Directors and our Executive Committee, and is a great partner and thought leader in our industry and in the work of the foundation. Before I hand it over to our first presenters, I wanted to encourage us to have an interactive conversation here. So as you're hearing these presentations, please use that Q&A function to put your questions in, and we will get back to them during discussion. We really want you to be a part of this interaction, a part of this discussion, as you learn from our speakers and as we hopefully get a chance to learn from you. So add those questions as we go to that Q&A function. And after our presentations from Colin and Sarah and Barbara, Robert, our moderator, will take us through discussion from there. So Dr. Campbell and Dr. Rosengren, welcome, and take it away.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so a few words on this point of department for what we're going to talk about today is, of course, that influencers or creators, as they're currently more commonly being referred to, have been a big part of the marketing landscape for quite some time. But what Colin and I was thinking is that it has been somewhat misunderstood and maybe even overlooked in terms of the impact that they're actually having. So if we look the past couple of years, even big finance firms such as Goldman Sachs and the big consultancy firms, they're all pointing to this creator economy where these influencers are playing key roles in new business ventures in various ways. And as marketing scholars, we've been thinking, this has been going on for quite some time, but we haven't really paid attention to what are those influencers actually doing and how are they changing the way marketing works beyond being billboards or someone you can pay to help spread your word or your products for you. So this was the point of departure for us, and me being a retail professor here in Stockholm, I obviously was concerned with the fact that retailers weren't paying that much attention. So our point of departure for today is a paper that we wrote together with Colin's colleague Justin Farrell, also in San Diego, where we were looking at the retail ecosystem and basically thinking, what's going on here? What are the real impact that influencers are having on the retail ecosystem? And are influencers really becoming retailers? And what we wanted to kind of pitch to you today is a discussion then on, are influencers in fact also becoming direct sellers? Are they moving into more spaces than just kind of the retail space? So our talk will be based on this paper, which obviously is on retailing specifically. But the idea is that we will talk more broadly about the impact of influencers in the commercial space of today in general. I don't know how many of you know this person, but this is the Swedish version of Kardashians. So this is Bianca Ingrosso. Her mother is a famous singer. Her dad was a dancer. Her brother is a pop star, and her other brother is running a restaurant. So obviously this is one of the prime examples of an influencer that we have here in Sweden and also in Europe. In her hand, she has a Kaya bag, which is her makeup brand. And I think what's interesting with this example with Bianca is that, of course, she is an influencer. She does paid a lot. So she has advertising for other brands, other companies, but she is also running a portfolio of companies on her own. And we would not be surprised by someone like this having a makeup brand. But perhaps what's more interesting is on the next slide, where in fact she also has a brand of canned tomatoes. And other Italian products that are being sold in the grocery markets here in Sweden. And I think they're also expanding internationally as we speak. So I think this is a good example of the fact that, okay, so this was a person who here in Sweden for the past decade has been highly visible as an influencer. And maybe we were overlooking some of the developments in her entrepreneurial efforts by just thinking of her as someone you can pay to post about your products. And we should have been paying more attention on how she creates this business platform for herself and the different products that she is able to move through that platform. And looking at this from a retail perspective, it's really clear that she's actually doing a lot of retail activities on her social media. So she is selling all these products, both her own and others. So she's building assortments. She's doing a lot of the things that traditionally manufacturer would have turned to a retailer for help, but now the influencers is there and giving help with some of these activities. So what we were doing, we were trying to map, like, what are the consumer-facing retailing activities that we typically use retailers to move products on a market, and we divided them into three different buckets. So we have functional activities, we have experiential activities, and we have relational activities. Functional are about this building assortment, creating value for money, making it easy to find what you want, and convenient way. Experiential retailing activities would be giving inspiration, showing how to use products, how to explore them, and also some kind of shoppertainment or entertainment. And then also, of course, relational aspects to this. So the retailer would typically offer expertise around the product. They would build personal relationships, make transactions easy, and also help with decision comfort after a purchase has been made. And what we wanted to find out was whether some of these activities are actually now being performed by influencers rather than retailers, if you look at the digital landscape in the way it's evolved. So we did a survey with consumers who were frequent users of social media, and we asked them about a recent purchase, either from an influencer or from a retailer. And we mapped then how well did they perform on this value creating activities of retailers. And not surprisingly, there were some that retailers did better and some that influencers did better. But one interesting aspect of this was the fact that there were quite few that retailers were perceived as doing better than influencers when it came to actually selling products. It was about assortment, value for money, and convenience. And this transaction, it was a smooth process to buy from them. But if you look at what the influencers were doing better, they were actually doing both functional, experiential, and relational activities better than retailers for those customers who are actually using influencers and buying from them. So on the functional side, it was about search efficiency, so making it easier to find what you want. A lot of experiential things were being offered by influencers, both in terms of inspiration, product visualization and exploration, and also entertainment. And then perhaps a little bit more surprisingly, also expertise, personal relationship, and this decision comfort, like what happens after, they were also excelling in compared to retailers. You want to take this, Colin, or should I?
Yeah, you can continue with this one, sure.
Okay. Yeah. So based on this, we were saying that, okay, so maybe influencers are more than billboards. Maybe they are actually moving in and they are being this customer interface, like a selling channel in their own right. And maybe they are even doing it better than some of the retailers, especially for this segment is very digital and where you can see e-commerce actors are not really experiential or adding relational value. It's quite functional in many cases. So to better understand what these values come from, or these retail activities, how they are performed, we also conducted a set of focus groups with consumers who were following influencers and using them in their purchase activities. And what we found then was that the search efficiency, it mainly came from how influencers are demonstrating products as they are being used, but also that they pick the products for you. So they will choose a set of products that they talked about and they can explain to you, which makes search much more efficient for consumers.
Yeah.
In
It's a huge
terms,
thing that came up
sorry.
in the focus. Sorry, I was just to say it was a huge thing that came up in the focus groups, right? Just how overwhelming stores can be nowadays, right? There's just so much selection out there.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
even though we think of them as mostly experiential and relational, there was a big functional benefit of having an intermediary choosing for you and showing how to use the
Yeah.
products, narrowing it down.
Yeah.
In terms of the experiential dimensions coming from retail, when you talk about experiential retail, you typically talk about this shoppertainment and high quality products and high quality imagery and those types of things. Here we could see that that wasn't really the case for the experiential value created by influencers. It was more about offering realistic visuals, being able to see these things being used in everyday situations, everyday life, and also the fact that you could interact. And it didn't have to be real-time interaction. It was a lot also like these, you post or you like and you see others doing the same. And that kind of provides you with a social dimension of experiential value. And then when it comes to relational, this was quite interesting with the hyper relatability. So, of course, you select into your influencers that you follow, which means that I can collect or follow a middle-aged woman in Stockholm and see exactly what she's doing, whereas Colin could go after a really tall guy in San Diego and find inspiration for what to wear or what to do based on that. So this hyper-relatability was a key dimension of how they build relational value, but also this pro-social behavior, that there was a given and a taking. So they were being offered ways to help each other out. It felt more communal than in many cases where you buy from a retailer.
Yeah. So it's really interesting just kind of going through and learning more about, both what these differences were and then also why consumers seem to be finding them actually more persuasive and more powerful than traditional retailers. So we went through and took a look at these and sort of synthesized some of the potential strategies that could be really relevant for direct sellers. And again, these are just sort of things we're kind of like hypothesizing or making guesses based on what our data kind of showed. But the first big one is really trying to simplify a complex product range. This may be less of an issue for direct sellers, but again, it was something that was very important when you're looking at a huge store like Nordstrom or even the grocery store, things like that. Being able to kind of pick out, here are the top 5 or 6 items to look at, or here are the first, 3 makeup products I should be looking at, or things like that, just to really kind of simplify it down and make it easier for people to understand what it is they should be going through and taking a look at. And this is really getting at that idea that influencers are good at sort of simplifying and reducing really complex product ranges and really complex sets of options that are out there for folks as well. What they also tend to do really well is make these very accessible. So obviously, if you're posting all the time on social media, things might get kind of buried in the feed. Influencers, in many cases, will go through and actually sort of collate these into, different buckets or categories or target audiences, and have all of the posts that are relevant to certain categories or certain types of people to make them even easier to kind of go through and discover as well. Another really big one as well is going through and showing how to actually use the product in real life. And we heard this repeatedly from consumers that we interviewed, that they want to see what is it actually like, right? What is the unboxing experience? How does it actually look in your house? How do the clothes actually look on a real person without having it photoshopped, things like that. And being able to go through and sort of showcase what is that real experience was very, very important to people. So these kind of demo videos, these like unboxing videos, these how to use, how to solve common problems, those kind of things are very important as well. And we saw this being mentioned tremendously. One of the interesting things here is that these don't have to be professional. In fact, consumers in many cases actually don't want them to be touched up because they want to see what is the realistic color of the clothing I'm buying, or what does the computer look like in real life, right? And things like that. So in some cases, it's actually better not to go through and actually have a full, stage setup or things like that, just so that people can actually get more of a real life experience from the video and content that's being created. This was an interesting one as well, too, that decision comfort. That in many cases, consumers they're concerned about whether or not they're actually going to like something or whether or not something's actually worth paying for, or even after they bought it, how to actually go through and begin using it. And so you think about more complex stuff, like stuff we might put on our skin, stuff we might be buying that's more expensive, like say buy a new espresso machine and things like that. Do I actually have the confidence that I can go through and use that to make really high quality drinks, things like that? And so we heard and we see this happening with influencers. They'll go through and have this sort of aftercare almost where they'll be able to put out content kind of showing people how to use stuff, how to diagnose problems, how to get the most out of products that they're going through and selling. And we see this happening especially because with influencers, often it's going to be a whole journey that consumers will be seeing. They're going to see the influencer unbox something. They're going to see their first reactions to it. They're going to see them use it. And then usually they'll come back at later points as well, too, in time and maybe do a review a month in or 2 months in or things like that. And so these kind of tips and stuff sort of naturally happen as part of that longer progression. And consumers in many cases find this very valuable. And they'll often go through and look at these before actually going through and even purchasing, just to kind of see what is that sort of longer term perspective on it, what sort of problems and things like that might people encounter, and is it relatively easy to kind of go through and fix those. And so this is something we're not seeing as much happening, especially digitally from retailers, but we do think it is kind of a cool potential thing to be able to go through and do. And then another one as well too is really leveraging salespeople, right? And we think there's a ton of really fantastic salespeople in direct selling, in retailing as well too, more broadly as well. And these people, especially if we're thinking about from a retail perspective, they're hearing comments and questions and concerns from customers every day. They probably have a really good sense of the product category that they're familiar with as well too. And being able to go through and have these people really kind of share their wisdom and, answer the top 5 questions they get or the mistakes they hear or the myths, that they hear as well too. This could be a really valuable set of content to really kind of build that relationship with consumers and also kind of unearth some of these things that may not be as visible, especially if people are just looking through a wholly online connection or experience with brands. And then finally, this one's kind of interesting as well too. And it's kind of a trick that influencers will go through and do in terms of building more trust with their audience. But consumers really seem to value it. And that is going through and describing who a product isn't for. And we'll see this happen with, I know one of the top Chinese influencers does this a lot as well, where he'll go through and describe what types of people should not buy certain types of makeup. And he'll say, if you have this type of skin, don't buy this, right? Or this is not a good fit for these kinds of people. And it really kind of builds that confidence that people then trust that person for saying this is not a good fit for some people, but it is better for these other types of people, for instance. And it really just makes it easier to kind of go through and work toward that purchase. So I think, this could be something as well too, just to kind of, it seems a bit weird to be telling consumers, not to buy something, but at the same time, it does increase that trust and hopefully increase that, decision comfort, like we termed it earlier, around purchases people might be considering. So there are some quick tips from us and some different ideas, but we're very eager to go through and get reactions and hear from Barbara as well.
All right, thank you. That's fantastic, Colin and Sarah. Really appreciate that. So Barbara, talk to us from Mary Kay's perspective and how you see it and how you go about it, and would love to sort of put the two things together when we get to discussion.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for having me here today. What I want to share first and foremost is why we are doing all of this. What's the objective? Because influencer marketing is part of that bigger objective that we want to accomplish. And we are regularly tapping into research to understand what the next generations are going to want. We have been we are now in 40 markets, but it started in the US 63 years ago. And we want to make sure that we are going to continue being relevant and being attracting all that next generation who is shopping on social, believing in what their peers and other creators are saying on social, are using TikTok and Instagram as a search engine, along with many of the AI searches that now are also taking information from there. So it is really important for us to understand how we truly use this other lens of the influencer marketing to really find those diverse voices. We want to really see all these next generation users identifying themselves, connecting with these people. So these diverse voices that influencers lend to the storytelling is super important. Here I have a few examples of some of the ways, and you see it also. I come to work every day to look up all the fantastic boxes that we put together for these influencers and some of these go-to beauty editors as well, because we want to ensure we allow for them to discover the product and what Mary Kay is about. The main reason is because when we were looking at this research, we were finding that this next generation either had no idea what Mary Kay is, they don't know what we do, or they have misconceptions of what Mary Kay is about, and they associated it with grandma makeup, or they are not necessarily even thinking that Mary Kay is a brand that they would ever consider for themselves. So we want them to be aware of who we are, what we do, what we offer, and have a more familiarity. And that familiarity, which is a little bit of a step deeper into awareness, really is more reliable, and they trust it more when it comes from these diverse voices that they are seeing in their feeds and they choose to follow and connect with. So when we are putting together a brief, for instance, when we were launching the SPF 50 for body and face, we truly put in the brief that we wanted these influencers to find a way of incorporating that product in activities that we're really going to be doing in real life. So that's how somebody chose to have their morning run and show how they were applying SPF 50 on their face. And here you're seeing an example of somebody getting ready for a day at the beach. And there was another one getting ready, showing how they were packing things for a trip. So those are really real life situations when it is mixed in within all the other activities that they are doing and that they are living their life, showing how their day looks like. For product demos, these influencer partnerships are so important, because here we are showing really the lo-fi video. This could be the dorm or the apartment or the house of somebody, and they feel that they could be them, and they could hear exactly what the reactions are, how it feels, how it looks like. This is particularly important when we have products that are a little bit more complex. So you don't want to only present the science and the facts that we, of course, have at Mary Kay, but they also want this emotional connection and this trustworthy perspective that comes from somebody opening and trying and putting it on their face. How much product are they putting it? Are they combining it with what exactly other products that they already have in their skincare routine? So retinol, for example, is one product that sometimes people are a little afraid of. And is it going to feel good on my screen, on my skin? So they watch what they are doing on the screen and connecting and really living it with this more sensorial aspect of the experience. The same thing with these under eye correctors or concealers. There are 9 shades of concealer. How do I pick that? So all these are really great ways for them to understand a little better how to make decisions in a way that feels more accessible. And I am introducing here also an aspect that has to do how we are measuring the success of what we do with these influencer activities. And in here we are partnering with some tools. There are so many in the market. We use one that is called Tribe to see at what the estimated media value of these partnerships could be. There is sometimes this idea of misconceptions that you're going to be partnering with an influencer. They post about something, boom, products are flying off the shelf. And it's truly the a layering tool. It's many times the need to be seen and hearing and understanding a product several times before making a decision. And these influencer activities are very much top of funnel. You heard the tofu, top of funnel activity for us, but we also acknowledge that many times this idea of the funnel is really being collapsed, and many times, sometimes people, they watch one of these videos and they go and purchase right away, and sometimes they just take more times. So the number of impressions is also important, and we are selecting here about it could be around 10 different creators every quarter that we are partnering with, more in the mid to larger size of following that could help us many times with these impressions, this awareness. And the influencer strategy to attract the next generation doesn't rely only on partnering with these mid to large size influencers. We use them not only for campaigns that have to do with product launches, that we have seen many examples of that before, but it's also something that very strategically we use sometimes when there is something on the brand side that we want to reinforce, and a message or a perception. When we were really taking a view of how to reach this next generation, we want to change their perceptions or build their perception of what Mary Kay is about beyond the products. So that's why you see here the second image of one of these influencers who has worked with us many times, both in paid and unpaid capacities, also being hired in this occasion because we wanted to really debunk some myths and some misconceptions that were going on about Mary Kay, that sometimes people think that, is it still around, or is it that grandma makeup? And by her showing her ideas and sharing the products, it was really helping also with this idea of what Mary Kay is about, not just the products. And then we, of course, take advantage of the content that they are posting on their own channels and the Mary Kay US social channels on TikTok and on Instagram. We many times repost it organically, or we use it as advertising. So sometimes it's just boosting on TikTok, and sometimes we are running this as meta advertising on Instagram and Facebook, targeting the 18 to 34 audience exclusively. Another way that we want to really create this opportunity for discovery is through these PR boxes, and these are sent in to different creators and influencers. This is in not a paid capacity, right? So what we want is to sometimes highlight one product. The example I am showing here is when we were launching the concealers, but then there could be an assortment, and there could be there, let's say, about 7-10 products, and they can pick whatever they would like, and they are creating that special experience of saying, I picked these 3, I picked these 5, and this is how we incorporate that into my routine. And that's what the content looks, and they help make the consumer make decisions on what products to potentially incorporate to their routine and in what way to do that. We also want to ensure that we are engaging a lot with the college student audience and help them discover Mary Kay and see how it truly fits the things that they do, particularly with athletes. Last year, we had a great partnership to have about 20 students, athletes, talk about how they incorporate some of the Mary Kay products in their routines when they go to practice, when they have a game day, but also gifting product to people on their team. So that is something that we always want to do. And of course, there are opportunities in an unpaid capacity that influencers or creators are invited to some of our events, particularly charitable events, or ways to show them the heart of the company that we are a lot more than just products. So was it working? Did we do something about favorability or brand awareness? So we did run a study with Meta, a brand lift study at the end of last year to see if all these tactics were working. And we were happy to see that favorability, which is, like I said, a little deeper than just awareness, went up by 5 points. And that was really a big deal because it was 168% higher than the regional benchmark and 50% higher than the other beauty companies. So we were super excited to see this, specifically for these more than 14 million people in the 18 to 34 group, which is the one that we are working with. And when we looked at the 2 ads that we were running at that time for this study, we saw that we were having a brand created content about this misconception character that we created to tackle some of the misconceptions about the company. And then we also run these videos from a creator that we partner with, and amazing results in engagement, because having to watch an ad and then go and take the time to go and comment and have conversations, and they were all very positive comments that were left there, was absolutely amazing. But when we saw that the engagement rate level was almost 15%, we just really knew that this tactic is really working really well. So for 2026, this year, what we are doing is something that we call the content burst strategy. We really want to create this illusion of virality when we are launching a new product and giving people that idea that, oh, I am almost seeing this everywhere, but because we are posting it for about 7 to 2 weeks in organic social media in our Mary Kay US brand channels. And that truly includes not only content that we have in our toolkits when a product is launched. We have a lot of great photography and testimonials, but we also include user-generated content from the consultants and influencer repost. And the ads are also only about this product. For the launch period in these 3 months, we only focus on this and this product. We use influencers only, mainly featuring this one particular product. It could be alongside other products, but we are truly being very strategic and intentional with creating this synergy also with the nano creators. I was talking to you before that we have these partnerships with mid-size or larger size creators, and we are also working with really nano creators up to 10,000 followers. Sometimes it could be a little more like a micro creator on TikTok, to have a little bit more of that depth, because they might not have that big of a following or the visibility that comes with that, but truly helps to have this more the depth that they comments, the fact that they don't have that much of a following, but it is really people connected to them, where the trust levels are really, really high. So that's the idea, to really bring people to get to visit marykay.com and eventually buy a product, always through a Mary Kay beauty consultant. And there is a lot that we are learning from these, particularly the lo-fi aesthetic. We see on TikTok in particular that really has the next gen, the reach on the next gen demographic is the highest when we have these really lo-fi content. And here are lots of examples how we as a brand are taking cues and applying it. And we are seeing always more than 50% of the audience reach, more than 60% in this case, is really showing that these content on organic social media is resonating very, very well. When we look at what works the best on Instagram, really product demos is what people enjoy the most. We still have lots of swatches that people love to see on different skin tones, and they always want to have that sensorial idea of what the product looks like. And we are taking the cue not only to use this creator style when we are taking the photography of products, but we use our scientist knowledge. We take employees using humor and bring in more personality. And of course, our independent beauty consultants. And in that sense, a lot of what we do is give them education to really know how to act in a way that is sounding more like a creator and influencer, making those real connections when they are creating content on social. But we went a step beyond that, and we are having our first global social squad in 15 of the 40 markets in Mary Kay to truly create more of these examples of what it looks like to be a Mary Kay influencer. For that, it is really helpful to give them some education, some tips. These are savvy consultants, but it's really fun to give them also trends to try and activate them. So there is a frequent cadence of activity that we are seeing on social. So World Party Day was a really fun one, and many of them decided to participate. So again, how do we measure if these things are working? And for us, it is very important to look overall at our engagement rates per post in the organic channels. And we are super pleased to see that by infusing more of these creator style in our content, we are seeing at the end of Q4 2025, 30 times higher engagement rate than the average. But even in Q1, that is growing after we are having this burst strategy to 58% higher than the average. And for TikTok, we are seeing it goes from 8 times higher to 14 times higher. And then on Facebook, we always get really great engagement. And in this case, compare is more than 200 times. So we are really, really excited to see this great success with these tactics.
Fantastic. Barbara, thank you. Really appreciate those insights, as well as the tofu reference, which was among my favorites. But really interesting from both sides, the conversation about building increasing trust through these methods as well. But really great discussion. So I'd like to bring on our moderator, Robert Cavett, to sort of bring us home in discussion. I know Robert has some questions and some things he'd like to share, but also we'll share some audience questions as well. So thank you to everyone for staying with us. Robert, take it away.
Yeah, one of the great opportunities with influence marketing and direct selling is the whole concept that everyone is an influencer to some degree. And, we have the macro celebrity, people that are, consider themselves professional influencers. But the fact is, everybody represents influence at some level, even our retail customers, not just our business people. All three of you referenced a little bit this concept of shareability, sharing content. And that's one of the super big opportunities for all of the companies, in direct selling, is to put programs together that reward people for sharing content and have the company create content. Certainly professional content creators, they're doing their own thing, they're doing their own live stream. But the fact is, what we're starting to see is companies creating content themselves, the company, and then making it very easy for anyone, customers and the representatives, to post that content out on social media, and then having simple reward programs for them, tracking that sharing, because technology allows us to do that, and then having simple reward programs. And also the additional power to that is that direct sellers with that type of influence program can now reach out to the whole world. I mean, let's be honest. Most of the world doesn't want to be a salesperson, and most of the world doesn't want to be a business builder recruiting other salespeople. But everybody lives on their phone and shares information on their phone. And when they like products, we share information about products or services. So more and more direct sellers are adding that kind of reward program to their direct selling model, and not in conflict with the representatives. So essentially, they can now market to this opportunity with everyone to engage with Mary Kay or engage with their business, without necessarily pushing becoming a business builder and recruiting people, because most people don't want to do that. So, Barbara, has Mary Kay kind of attacked that particular concept? And to the professors, I'd very much welcome your thoughts around a lot of what you said, applies to the influencers and how they put content together, and then the companies putting social content together. But your experience and what you see in terms of companies in any industry preparing shareable content, so that customers can be putting that out. Barbara, I'll go to you first. Yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you for doing that. This is a really, really interesting topic, because what we want is to empower the consultants, the beauty consultants, to create content, but we do not want necessarily to create an ecosystem where everybody's posting the same thing. We want them to be feeling that they are finding their voice and that they are finding a way of communicating that uniqueness. Remember that the direct selling industry is all about building those relationships, and they are already very, very good at doing that many times in real life experience, one-on-one. And some of them feel that, I don't know if I can do that in the social space, or much less feel like I am an influencer, because they are associating influencer with that celebrity thing, and everything is curated, and the jets and all that alluring lifestyle. So that's why it is important to us to really hone in on the fact that they are already experts in building those relationships in the one-on-one world that they do mostly in person, and bring it to the social space. And providing education, providing guidelines on what can and cannot be said in the direct selling space, but also guidelines on hooks that are successful, is a really great way of helping them create their content. There are thought starters that we do provide, but we never want to provide necessarily exactly all the same videos for them to use. So they do get assets in a library that they can pick, and then they can create a carousel or combine it with a video. So that is a very important aspect. To another portion of your question was about the rewarding. So many of the influencers out in the world, they want to have links from retailers to become affiliates, right? And so the affiliates programs from those retailers give them some sort of commission. What we do with the consultants, of course, when they are selling, it goes to their website, and they are getting their commissions, which are a lot more robust than anything that affiliate programs are out there offering. But also there is an extra layer or incentives that we are finding, that there are sometimes challenges. Like we had one going on in January and February that had to do also with helping them increase sales. But there were prompts on how to go on social media and be talking about how much they love their life, or how much how many times they are reapplying SPF, things like that, that gives them almost like checks every week on how many posts they were doing. And at the end of that, there was a reward for those who completed all the tasks.
Yeah, great. So in some ways, you're growing influence marketing organically within the organization.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And maybe I can add to that, because I think that's a very interesting opportunity that exists, right? Is to use these tactics and also empower more people within an organization. And I loved your example where you had both the consultants, but also the scientists who can actually do these types of things that makes it behind the scenes and more interesting. And being a retail professor, I think that this is also very much needed because we have this layer of, and this is where the direct selling, you mean you have those relationships with your local customers, but customers are no longer just physical local customers, right? They are very engaged in social media that are local, which will be difficult to run from a head office, regardless if you're a direct selling organization or if you're a retailer that I study. So coming up with ways to empower people to continue those relationships also in the digital space and removing some of the hurdles that might be there, that like this is perfectly fine, it's uncut, it's something that is straightforward, easy. Maybe you get training and you can give a preview of your training to the ones that follow you who will meet you later. So all of these things, building an ecosystem where maybe it's part of the role. We were looking at one of the retailers in the San Diego area where they actually had some of the store employees. They were part-time paid for being influencers. So they had a small budget to run local events in the store. And they also had some time to spend showcasing new products and taking, producing content in the store for their local following. So I think there's some organizations have already started doing it, and it was nice to see how you're doing it at Mary Kay. But I think there's a lot more potential in that and across different parts of the organization as well. You might have someone who's a really good content creator who's the accountant. Who knows? How can we find a way to incentivize him or her to also be part of this process?
I almost wonder, I think at a bigger level, it's really kind of like just disassembling the different components. Because if you think about it, like traditionally, it would be somebody who would be the consultant coming over to a person's house. They would have that personal relationship, also probably be doing those demos and things like that live in some cases or with a small group, right? But the question is like, to kind of go back to Sarah's example, like I'm super tall, it's hard to see on Zoom, right? But like, could it be that the local consultant is in some ways partnering with a company influencer so that I'm actually following somebody at the company who's also tall and I'm getting content from them, but also that personal relationship locally from someone else. And then like, how do you sort of disaggregate those two things and sort of revise that incentive model so both parties are kind of incentivized to create that content that kind of keeps me engaged, but I still have that person who's local to kind of fulfill the, on the ground kind of stuff as well too. And so it could be kind of cool thinking about how they might kind of rejig that or play with it in some ways. And I think the neat thing as well too is I think direct sellers, because they have really, really good, on the ground people, right? They have a lot more sort of relationship capital and a lot of, I think, really potentially good creators they're going to play with. I feel like with retailers, they're perhaps not as directly engaged sometimes with consumers. Maybe it's not always the case, but I think that direct sellers probably are kind of well positioned to kind of take the charge with that.
Yeah, you bring up an excellent point. That flexibility in managing your ecosystem of relationships. And it can all be done with today's technologies in a way that doesn't compromise our sales organization or their compensation opportunity, because that's what's key in direct selling. But today's platforms and technologies do that. And everything that all of you said is vitally important, because direct selling, a big battle for direct sellers is trying to reach the younger generations. And the younger generations all expect this type of engagement model, this engagement flexibility, and these types of tools and technologies. 50% of the Generation A say that they feel that their career is going to be as an influencer, online influencer. Colin, Sarah, you guys know this better than all we do. I mean, that's their vision, rock star, athlete and online influencer, right? Are what they dream about being and doing. So, having platforms and technologies that facilitate this are just vital for reaching the newer generations too. Yeah, Gary, I think you got some questions from as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I wanted to share some questions from the audience. And one thing I will add, Colin, one of the things I love about this venue is I feel tall too. So It's nice to have that. We have a few questions from our audience, and I know we're getting up against time, but I really wanted to get these in. And I think, Barbara, that these, at least this one certainly would be for you. A participant asked if you can give a range of what your budget looks like for creators. Is that something that you can share or something you can give a sense of?
Um, what I can and give you a sense is like we are seeing the rates being going up really, really fast in the last 2 months. We have seen increases, but I think what it is really, really helpful for us is that we are looking at this always in a very dynamic way. And when we are having this much success, when we are seeing these smaller creators that we are working with, those are under $1,000 many times for posting 2 or 3 pieces of content. And most of the time, we are finding that. Those pieces of content really multiply the reach because we use them for ads that we create on our own. We boost them or we put them in organic. So there are really many, many ways of managing the budgets. To make sure that they are adapting, because we are also sometimes even seeing flexibilities and changes as we go along. Even we are potentially set up with a number at the beginning of the year, but then things can also always change.
Great.
Gary, this is a huge topic, cost. Nano influence cost is one of the reasons so many companies direct sellers are focusing on developing the nano influence, not just the big, celebrities or people that have, millions of followers already.
Gotcha. Interesting. And this kind of leads into this an additional audience question, Robert. Both of your points. Barbara, as you think about, and Robert as well, but Barbara, start with you on the influencers and how they're managed within Mary Kay, the traditionals as compared to the influencers, I should say. Are they managed by the same people? Our participant wants to know. And are the compensation plans similar, the same? How do you navigate between those two things when you think about managing the traditional versus the influencers?
The traditional meaning, sorry.
The traditional in-home consultant, as
Our
compared to the
Salesforce members as influencers versus the paid influencers.
correct. Yeah.
Okay.
That's how I understand the question. Yeah.
Fantastic. The way that we manage the external paid influencers and creators, we do work through our PR agency too, we have PR and paid media agency to negotiate contracts and make sure we are having the briefs set in a really good place and managing all the revisions that might be needed. There are not that many needed. We always want to give a lot of creative freedom to the creators. So all of that is managed through agencies, and rates are negotiated individually. The one thing that is extremely important for us is that we do not give commissions. The only way that a consumer can get to Mary Kay products is when they buy through an independent beauty consultant. So that is something that we protect very much, and that's why we go with a negotiated rate and never a link that gives commissions. And then the way that we manage the forming those influencers within the company in terms of Salesforce members, beauty consultants becoming non-influencers, or in some cases even micro-influencers, because they get more than 10,000, sometimes 60,000, 70,000 followers, is that we ensure first and foremost that we provide clear guidelines on what they can do and cannot do in terms of direct selling industry. There are some specific rules to follow. TikTok also has in their policies that the business opportunity cannot be promoted. And so we ensure that we equip them to really know what they can and cannot do, but then also supplement that with a lot of really creative ways of ideating content through, we have playbook ideas that have thought starters. We have some images and videos that they can use also to create their own carousels, like I was saying before, and education, and showcasing many times the successes of others. That's how that Global Social Squad works, to provide examples that already are successful in real life for other beauty consultants that they can take cues from.
Fantastic. Fantastic.
Our customers allow influencer the field to recruit an influencer, and because influencers are retailers, so they're looking to just get a bonus on what their sales are. So when somebody signs up to just be an influencer, they're just getting a retail bonus. That's what they expect on the orders that they generate. But our customers will actually allow that order to still go upline, but influencer orders are paid less. It's not the same percentage as the rest of the compensation plan. Why? Because an influencer bonus got paid. But the general thinking is that influencer orders are orders that field this consultants wouldn't typically have been paid on or received. Right. So they receive less of a commission on orders that come from influencers or, people that are doing straight retailing. So there's the model Barbara mentioned, right, which completely makes sense, especially when you've got more macro influencers. But what we see with a lot of our customers is they're focused more on the nano. They don't want to pay the big dollars, and they pay commissions on those influencer orders differently, less typically in terms of what goes upline, because the influencer is getting a bigger percentage.
In the case of Mary Kay, the consultant always gets exactly the same amount, whether that purchase came because a customer has just viewed a video from an influencer or not. So there are absolutely no changes and no losses of any kind for a consultant if that sale came because of somebody watching an influencer video.
Right.
Gotcha. That's a helpful picture of approaches to do that. So we are up against our hour, and I want to say Dr. Colin Campbell, Dr. Sarah Rosengren, Barbara Williams, and Robert Cavett, thank you very much. This was a great discussion and something that I hope we can continue. I think there's just so much depth here and value that we can continue to mine in this discussion. I want to say thank you to our friends in Europe and our friends all over the US to the West Coast, including Colin, that stayed with us through their time zones and differences there. Great discussion. We encourage you to continue to follow DSEF Insights. We hope you'll support and contribute to DSEF. Please, we would love to engage with you. Get in touch with us. We'd love to talk with you there. DSA members, look for DSA Direct Talks, which are fantastic industry discussions as well. If you're not a DSA member, explore that. And if we can help you explore that, please let us know as well. Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you for hanging with us. Thank you to our fantastic presenters, and we'll see you next time from DSEF.